Programming on WTTW is made possible in part by viewers like you and by the following.
This is our great-grandfather who had a dream in 1945 to open a family business in his name. This is our grandfather who expanded on that dream, bringing custom furniture to Chicago. This is our father and his brothers who grew that dream into the 10 showrooms here today. This is us, 4 sisters who want to make the generations before us proud while making Chicago homes beautiful. Since 1945, this is Smith.
Programming on WTTW originates from the Alexandra C. and John D. Nichols Broadcast Operations Center. We gratefully acknowledge their outstanding support. WTTW programming originates from the Renee Crown Public Media Center.
We've got a great show on our show tonight.
Mrs. Brown, you've got a lovely daughter. In the name of love.
See the girl with the diamond ring. She knows how to shake that thing.
Saturday at 7 on WTTW.
Hi, I'm Raphael, and I watch WTTW.
This evening's presentation of Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by Jim and Kay Mabey.
Good evening and welcome to Chicago Tonight. I'm Brandis Friedman. Paris Schutz is on assignment. On the show tonight,
this is the first day we have welcomed students to this building in a year.
It's the first day of school, sort of. Thousands of CPS students are back in the classroom, but many more are still remote learning. Undelivered mail and lengthy delays for letters and packages that do arrive. What is going on at the U.S. Postal Service in Chicago? Evanston's Orrington Hotel faces a $50 million foreclosure lawsuit. That and more business news from Cranes.
People are blowing red lights. You know, I hate to punish people, but I don't know what else we could do.
And new, stricter rules for red light and speed cameras go into effect today. Carol Marine is back with a new report. But first, some of today's top stories. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot says shipments of Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccine are expected to arrive in the city today or tomorrow.
I don't have a firm lock on what the amount of doses is, so I don't want to get ahead of myself, but we do expect it here this week, and obviously we will put it to work as soon as we get it. CDPH has been preparing now for some time as we saw the Johnson & Johnson vaccine kind of moving through the regulatory approval process.
The single-dose vaccine was given emergency use authorization by the Food and Drug Administration over the weekend. It joins Pfizer and Moderna's shots as the third coronavirus vaccine approved so far in the United States. Johnson & Johnson says it expects to deliver 20 million doses to the U.S. by the end of March and 100 million by this summer. This comes as Illinois reports more than 1,100 new cases of COVID-19 statewide and 20 additional deaths. The state is reporting a total of almost 1.2 million total cases with 20,536 deaths. The state's 7-day statewide positivity rate is 2.7%. A new survey of Illinois school districts finds that 77% of schools are struggling to hire and retain teachers. The Illinois Association of Regional Superintendents study says nearly 1,000 teaching positions as of fall 2020 were unfilled or filled by someone unqualified for the job. Nearly 200 were special education positions. The survey also found that vacancies were exacerbated by the pandemic, which also made it harder to hire substitute teachers. And Chicago's Bronzeville neighborhood could soon be getting some special recognition. Illinois Senators Dick Durbin and Tammy Duckworth introduced a bill in Congress this week that would turn the South Side community into a national heritage area. Known as the Black Metropolis, Bronzeville was where many Black Chicagoans moved after traveling from the South during the Great Migration. National Heritage Area designations allow communities to access special funds and programs for historic preservation and economic development. 37,000 Chicago public school students are back in classrooms across the city for the first time since schools were shut down nearly a year ago. The return comes after weeks of debate between the school district and Chicago Teachers Union over how to safely reopen schools. But some are still arguing for improvements to remote learning. With backpacks and lunchboxes in hand, kindergarten through 5th grade students file into their buildings, where a new reality awaits them. Desks socially distanced, masks all the time, and far fewer students.
This is the first step on the road to normalcy, whatever the new normal will be. We are going into the recovery phase, and this is a very important phase, not just for the city as a whole, but more importantly for our children and their future.
School CEO Janice Jackson and Mayor Lori Lightfoot toured Hawthorne Elementary in the city's Lakeview neighborhood this morning, where teachers and staff are expecting 57% of their enrollment to return. Kindergarten through 5th grades this week and 6th through 8th grades next week.
Some missed the sense of community. Some really had students who were struggling with mental health badly and felt like they just needed to be in person because that was an issue. Some were struggling academically.
But across the district, not all schools are expecting as many students to return. That's part of the reason the Chicago Teachers Union and many parent groups have called on the district to improve remote learning.
There needs to be options for in-person that are better than what parents have been offered right now. And there needs to be improvements to remote learning because even the hybrid kids are still remote 3 days a week.
Even students who do return are only in their buildings 2 days a week, either Monday and Tuesday or Thursday and Friday. Everyone learns remotely on Wednesday. One group of parents was so dismayed by the tug of war between the Chicago Teachers Union and the district, they organized a sick out, keeping kids home for the day to make their voices heard.
Withholding their attendance is sending a message to Lori Lightfoot that we do have a power, that we do have a choice as a parent.
And across CPS, the majority, 63% of pre-kindergarten through 8th grade students and special needs students have elected to continue remote learning. Just under 30% chose the hybrid in-person model. And the district says more than 7% didn't respond to surveys. Starting this week, the district and the union plan discussions on figuring out how to invite high school students back into their classrooms as well.
I think that we need to really try to get an accounting, a careful take on which students are having the hardest time with remote learning.
And Jackson says parents can expect to receive a survey in the next few weeks about whether or not they want to return to in-person learning in the 4th quarter. That starts mid-April. The principal at Hawthorne Elementary says she's already heard from some parents expressing interest. Many Chicagoans have been experiencing mail delays for months. Some are simply irritating, like Christmas cards being delivered in February. But other delays can be far more consequential, from late unemployment checks to potentially life-saving prescriptions. Joining us to talk about the problems at the post office are Southside resident Grovina Galbraith, who says she's been experiencing mail problems for months, 40th Ward Alderman Andre Vasquez, and Mac Julian, president of the Chicago Postal Workers Union, the National Association of Letter Carriers, Local 11. Thanks to all of you for joining us. Now, we did invite the USPS in Chicago to send a representative to join us, but we were told they were not granting interviews at this time. Alderman Vasquez, let's start with you, please. What have you been hearing from residents in your ward about problems with the mail?
Yeah, we've had complaints from neighbors even before COVID of really long spans of time, weeks of not getting mail and then getting a day with a complete pile-on of mail from months before. So it's just been really unacceptable. And when people are expecting all of the resources to come through the mail, checks, everything else, it's something that it keeps increasing as far as attention from our neighbors.
What's been the response of USPS when you brought these problems to their attention?
That's been the biggest problem, is there hasn't been really a response. Like, we understand that through COVID, there are a lot of challenges that they have to overcome, but the fact that they're not willing to speak to neighbors, to be responsive, and to really come out in front, I think puts them at a disadvantage, because most people understand that it's difficult, but if you're not trying to speak about it, it looks like you're hiding something.
Now, USPS in Chicago, they did send us a statement apologizing for the disruption in service, saying in part, quote, "We have experienced staff shortages at those locations and are currently using available resources to match the workload created by the impacts of the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. This includes bringing in extra resources at those locations. Chicago is currently hiring approximately 200 additional letter carriers." Julian, would you expect that another 200 letter carriers would make the difference? And how quickly could they actually get those folks hired and on the job?
Yeah. Thanks for having me. 200 letter carriers can make a difference. They make a world of difference. The problem is that we've been telling them about this shortage for over a year now. I'm sure that many of our customers will say that the issues that they're having with the mail started before the pandemic, only became worse during the pandemic. So yeah, 200 will go a long way. That would still put us about a few months out from them being actually experienced and able to help over the past week, particularly this weekend and maybe through next week. We have had additional resources come in from out of town to assist with mail delivery.
What have you been hearing from your members about what the workload has been like for them and what support they're getting?
Well, for them, it's totally frustrating because it's a lot of work on them for those who are at work. This is something that could have been prevented. They're customers too, so they understand the frustration of the customers out there. And, a lot of times they get some of the backlash on out there on the streets when they're delivering because the customers are upset, they're not getting their mail. But our members are not to blame.
Grovina Galbraith, you first noticed a problem in October. What problems have you and your neighbors been experiencing?
Thank you for having me. Just as Alderman Vasquez stated, just the lack of consistent mail delivery. We can go weeks at a time not getting regular first-class mail, packages with tracking information is not kept updated. I probably have a good 20 packages with tracking information that is somewhere within the United States Postal System, but they say they're out for delivery and then they don't show up, or they say they attempted a delivery and someone is home at my residence all day, every day, and the packages are just not arriving or they've been lost. And this issue for me really isn't about economics, about waiting for checks or such. In that way, I've been very fortunate that I haven't been struck by the pandemic in that way, but I'm an avid online shopper trying to support brick and mortar businesses through the e-commerce. And my lack of confidence in receiving my merchandise makes me question whether or not I should even be patronizing those businesses. And so it creates a ripple effect because now you have an economic downturn already in a pandemic and stores struggling to stay open, and then the loss of jobs. So it's multifaceted. The most vulnerable of us are impacted by this: the elderly, the disabled, the sick, and the shut-in, people who don't have access to high-speed internet as evidence from the issues with online learning. Being able to receive direct deposit, that's a privilege. That's not a right.
And Grovina, you've been to the post office itself, like a brick and mortar post office, in the last few months during all of this?
I have been to my local branch, which is the Jackson Park branch. I have waited in line in excess of 4 hours to try and receive mail and not given my mail. I've been told that they can't give mail out over the counter. I have lodged complaints with the United States Postal Service. I have contacted the Consumer Affairs office downtown, and I'm not given any sort of resolution or any insight, and the mail delivery has really been arbitrary and capricious.
Julian, first, as a representative of so many letter carriers, what do you think when you hear Grovina Galbraith's story? But also give me a sense of exactly how understaffed would you say the Chicago area is?
Well, to be honest with you, it's totally disappointing. You can't work for the Postal Service as we have for over the years. Many of my members, we're not just hired. We take an oath, and then we fall into believing truly the mission that we're out to accomplish every day, but not having the resources available to you to get that job done is frustrating, because you know your customers are counting on you. You know that there's medication, and mail is personal to our customers and to ourselves as well. Again, we are customers. How short are we? It's hard to say, because as it indicated in the OIG report that Congressman Rush referenced last week, a lot of the information or data that the Postal Service have is distorted. I can go into an office and I can see if there's 50 assignments in there, that they're down maybe 20 or 30 assignments. Other offices not impact as much. There's not enough flexible resource to send around the city. That's why we're having carriers come in from as far as Iowa and Ohio and Indiana just to help out here in Chicago. But I do trust and believe that with the hiring of these carriers and the new contract that we're about to see implemented, that in the next few months, you all should see a real big difference. I know that there's some communities.
Sorry to interrupt. We've just got 30 seconds left. I want to get Alderman Vasquez in here really quickly. Representative Bobby Rush has called for the resignation of the local postmaster. Alderman, do you support the call for her resignation?
Yeah, I joined along with 29 of the city council members asking for the same. And it's not because of the challenge itself, but it's how you address it. I've been in management for over a decade, and you have times that are tough, but you have to be willing to talk to people, explain the challenges and how you're going to work through it. And it's the inability to even respond, even like on this show, that actually leads us to those actions.
Okay, more to keep an eye on, I'm sure. Alderman Vasquez, Gravina Galbraith, and Mac Julian, thanks to all of you for joining us.
No problem.
Thank you.
Up next, Boeing prepares for air travel to increase. That and more business headlines. Stay with us. Evanston's Orrington Hotel faces a $50 million foreclosure lawsuit. United Airlines increases its Boeing 737 MAX order ahead of an expected travel rebound, and the biggest hydrogen fuel cell factory in the U.S. is coming to Bolingbrook. Here to go behind the headlines is Crain's Chicago business editor Ann Dwyer. Welcome back, Ann. So Evanston's prominent Orrington Hotel facing that foreclosure lawsuit, where does it stand?
Well, the owner is set to walk away, we think, Brandis, mainly because they apparently see no way that they're going to be able to get caught up on their mortgage payments, which have been in arrears since August. Now, in fact, that's why Deutsche Bank did file this foreclosure lawsuit. They are the property's lender. And they basically are saying that this New York-based real estate firm that owns Orson Properties either needs to pay up or hand over the Orrington. And really, it's just the latest example of how hard hit the hospitality industry has been in the pandemic, Brandis.
Right. So United Airlines, though, expanding its order of the 737 MAX jets from Boeing, speeding up deliveries. United expecting a boost in travel?
They are. I mean, speaking of industries that have been hard hit, United is seeing some light at the end of the tunnel. They are betting that demand will rebound. But of course, these are long-term moves. Basically, United is calling for speedier delivery of several 737 MAX jets that it already had on the order books. So more of those planes will be ready to fly by 2022. But then they're also adding another batch of these jets to their list by the end of 2023. They're figuring that they're going to need them because they expect domestic travel to rebound pretty quickly, and that's what these 737 MAX jets are made for. International travel might take a bit longer. United has been saying for a while they see it rebounding not until 2024.
Yeah, eyeing some of that pent-up demand, it sounds like. So Hyzon Motors opening the largest hydrogen fuel cell factory in the U.S. in Bolingbrook. And what is the scale of this project, and how do these hydrogen-powered vehicles compare to electric?
Well, I'm no engineer, but my understanding is that a hydrogen fuel cell basically is the kind of battery that makes electricity on the fly while the vehicle is running, unlike other types of electric vehicles where you have to plug them in and recharge. Now, the news today is that this company, Hyzon Motors, is they make batteries for hydrogen-fueled trucks. And they've chosen Bolingbrook as a location for a components factory for these types of batteries. We are told it's going to be the largest of its kind in the U.S. Now, adoption of hydrogen-fueled vehicles is kind of lagging behind adoption here in the U.S. of other types of electric cars. But Heisen is betting that there's going to be interest, especially with so many companies already dedicating themselves to longer-term and near-term green targets. So this factory, we're told, is going to start construction next year, and it's going to be a big one. We're watching it very closely.
Yeah, I was just thinking that'll be one to watch for sure. And Dwyer at Cranes, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Starting today, the city of Chicago is jacking up fines. If you drive even 6 miles over the speed limit near schools and parks, the city will slap you with a ticket. And that has the mayor at odds with some aldermen. Carol Marine and students from DePaul University's Center for Journalism, Integrity, and Excellence have the story. Carol, welcome back. Good to see you.
Thank you, Brandis. You know, what's ironic is even though there are fewer cars on the road, more people are dying. Traffic deaths in Chicago rose 77% last year, according to the City Department of Transportation. But starting today, drivers will have to back off the gas pedal or open up their wallets. Chicago is now fining drivers for going just 6 miles over the speed limit. And you could be caught in the blink of an eye. How? Speed cameras, 161 of them, near schools and parks around the city. A flash of white light means you've been nailed. One of the cameras with the most violations in the first 3 weeks of January was in the 38th Ward on Forest Preserve Avenue, with more than 1,250 caught speeding. Nick Spazzato is the alderman.
I have mixed feelings about it, Carol. So people are out of control with their driving habits. We have to do something to get them to calm down. I get calls every day about people are speeding, people are obeying stop signs, people are blowing red lights.
92 people died in motor vehicle accidents last year in Chicago. That's up from 52 deaths in 2019. Chicago Department of Transportation figures indicate higher speeds, no surprise here, contribute to more deaths. What's happening in Chicago is happening all over the country. In a study conducted by INRIX, a traffic analytics firm, they found from April to July of 2020, people were driving less, but they were driving faster, contributing to a 31% increase in traffic deaths from the year before. Has raising the cost and the threshold for speeding tickets worked in the past in reducing fatalities and accidents?
It really has worked.
Joseph Schwieterman of DePaul University is a nationally recognized transportation expert. He believes tickets and fines can make a difference in how people drive.
So the price incentives are probably the easiest way to make a dent in this. You get one or two of these $35 tickets and your behavior is forever changed.
In October, Mayor Lori Lightfoot proposed a new fine for going just 6 miles over the speed limit in safety zones, citing public safety but acknowledging the city is in the red. In an NBC5 interview, here's what the mayor said.
If somebody's got a better idea on how to close a $1.2 billion budget deficit, we're open to it.
Under the new rule, people caught by speed cameras driving 6 to 10 miles over the limit are fined $35. When driving 11 miles over the limit, speed camera fines, as in the past, remain at $100.
The fines are a reasonable level where it's, for a lot of people, a slap on the hand rather than a major financial burden.
But not so fast, says Alderman Anthony Beal.
You know what? Tell the people they can least afford it that it's modest. You know, tell those people that, you know, when they get that ticket.
His 9th Ward is on the far south side.
That's impactful on people in my community. That hurts people in my community.
One of the cameras with the highest number of violations in January is in the 20th Ward on East Morgan Drive.
The chair recognizes Alderman Taylor.
Jeanette Taylor is the alderman there.
Don't give me crumbs and tell me it's cake.
We're in a global pandemic, and there's no way in the world that we should be balancing this budget on the backs of taxpayers. We shouldn't be increasing any fines.
These speed light cameras have had problems, have they not, these companies?
You mentioned red light cameras, and people's blood pressure goes up because they've seen the coverage. There's no suggestion that this results in tickets not being issued in a proper way.
People aren't obeying stop signs. People are blowing red lights. I hate to punish people. But I don't know what else we could do.
So, ready or not, the new fines are here. Drivers, beware.
If you can't afford tickets, you just need to obey the law. Plain and simple.
So using the city's information, we looked for the top 5 locations for the most violations for the first 3 weeks in January. Brandis, the winners or the losers and the wards they are in, the 20th, the 9th, the 10th, the 38th, and the 39th. You know which ward we're sitting in right now?
I should know this, but I do not.
39th.
39th. There's a camera down the street from here.
And so, and I know you have a bit of a lead foot.
Who
If
told
you're if you're zipping by 4124 West Foster, don't zip so much.
Note to self. I
Note
won't
to
do
self.
that. Yeah, I think I might have gotten a warning once. Thankfully, I'm going to ease back a little bit more. Carol, you've been retired for a few months now. How is it going?
It's going really well. I honestly don't know how I did all the other stuff. I love this DePaul Journalism Center that we're running, and I love the students who produced this. They produced it in record speed, and they're just about to jump into the profession, looking for my old job and possibly
Probably
yours.
mine, yes.
But it's been great. It really has.
Record speed. Was that pun intended?
Kind of. And
Just
can
a
I
little
just
bit.
say, it's nice to be home.
It is good to have you back. We all missed you here.
Thank you.
Carol Marine, thanks so much. And we're back to wrap things up right after this. But first, a look at the weather. And that's our show for this Monday night, abbreviated to bring you special pledge programming. And don't forget to stay connected with us by signing up for our daily briefing. And you can get Chicago Tonight streamed on Facebook, YouTube, and our website, WTTW.com/news. You can also get the show via podcast and the PBS video app. And please join us tomorrow night live at 7. The latest on the rollout of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine as shipments begin to arrive in Chicago. And longtime Lincoln Park Zoo head and iconic Chicago television personality Dr. Lester Fisher turns 100. He'll be here to talk about his legendary career. And we leave you tonight with images from another zoo. Brookfield Zoo reopened today. Now for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thanks for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning for this program is brought to you by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, dedicated to